Hello, fourth grade. I'm giggling because of
April Fools!
because of that. She won't leave me alone. She's everywhere. I can't get away from her. Okay, so I'm in my basement and it is freezing down here. So I'm wearing my hat and I've got a big old cover. And I've got a spot of my tea. I had to switch to tea because, as you have maybe figured out in other videos, I cannot have any more iced coffee. I might be going a little crazy without it. All right, where are we, my cute friends? I don't really even know. I should have figured it out before I pressed play. All right, I'm getting there. Oh, amen, right? Because why? What happened? Grayson learned to read and he read his first sentence all by himself. Anybody remember the first sentence? It was, I think it was, I see the ball, right? It was, I see the ball. He read that all by himself. All right, here we go. So, we left with Magee hopping off the bag. He thrust both his hands to the ceiling and shouted, "Amen!" And suddenly the kid was hugging him, squeezing with a power you never suspected was in that little body, unless you had seen him pole a baseball almost to the trees in dead center field. "Okay," said Maniac, clapping his hands. "What'll it be? I'll be the cook, whatever you want." Maniac had a toaster oven now, compliments of his whiskered friend. In fact, little by little, Grayson had brought him a lot of things. A chest of drawers for his clothes, a space heater, a 2-foot refrigerator, hundreds of paper dishes and plastic utensils, blankets, a mat to sleep on, which the kid ignored, preferring the chest protectors. And in time, the place was homier than Grayson's room at the Y. So remember, Maniac didn't really have soft things to ever sleep on, except when he was at Amanda Beal's house. And do you remember where he is? He's in the equipment room of the baseball field. So he's on all the chest protectors from the catcher's gear. So when Maniac clapped his hands and said, "What'll it be? I'll be the cook, whatever you want," Maniac is obviously going to celebrate with a dinner. All right, so Grayson says, "How about a corn muffin?" choosing something easy on his bad teeth and aching gums. Maniac went to the bookcase that served as a pantry. "One corn muffin coming up." "Toasted?" "Yeah, why not?" "Butter?" "Sure, butter. Who wouldn't put butter on?" "Something to drink with that, sir?" "Nah, muffin's enough." "The apple juice is excellent, sir. It was a great year for apples." "Live it up," thought Grayson. "Yeah, okay, apple juice." "Coming right up, sir." After the snack, the kid proved himself as good a mind reader as a cook. "Why don't you stay overnight?" he said. "It's late." While he groused about so preposterous an idea, the kid laid down the mat he never used, bulldogged him down to it, pulled off his shoes, and draped a blanket over him. Grayson protested. "This is supposed to be yours." The kid patted his chest protectors. I'm okay. And he knew that was the truth of it. The old man gave himself up willingly to his exhaustion and drifted off like a lazy sky-high fly ball. Something deep in his heart, unmeasured by his own consciousness, soared unburdened for the first time in 37 years, since the time he had so disgraced himself before the Mud Hens Scout and named himself thereafter a failure. So this was the first time he laid down and felt really good about himself, because all he knew before was baseball, and now he's a reader and he's like a dad to Magee, so he's feeling good about himself. The blanket was there, but it was the boy's embrace that covered and warmed him. When somebody does something you really like, amen, the old old man whispered into the cornmeal and baseball-scented darkness. For most of November, Winter toyed with 2 Mills, whispered in its ear, tickled it under the chin. On Thanksgiving, Thursday, Winter kicked it in the stomach. So remember, 2 Mills is where they live. So when they say that November, Winter whispered in its ear and tickled under its chin, it was coming in really lightly, and all of a sudden on Thanksgiving Thursday, it kicked him right in the stomach. So in came the cold. But that didn't stop the old man and the boy from joining the 10,000 who thronged to the stadium on the boulevard to see the traditional high school football game. The Arctic air laid panes of ice over the crayfish edge pools of Stony Creek. The effect was the opposite on human noses. Maniacs and Graysons ran like faucets, and not a handkerchief in sight. They deputized their sleeves and grabbed handfuls of napkins from the refreshment stand. This is deputizing their sleeves. 2 Mills won the game thanks to a last-minute 73-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Dennehy to James Hands Down. Remember him? James Hands Down? He was one of the guys that was throwing football, and Maniac Magee intercepted it. From the instant his old trash-talking Sandlot pal cradled the ball in his long brown fingers, Maniac was jumping on his seat, screaming trash at Hand's pursuers every step to the goal line, and glancing about to make sure Mrs. Beale wasn't hearing. Remember, Mrs. Beale doesn't like trash talk. Neither do I. By the time they got back to the baseball room, they were nearly frozen, but the freeze was good, for it made the warmth of the little apartment all the more welcome. Within 15 minutes, the space heater had the place positively tropical, while in the toaster oven, their 5-pound Thanksgiving chicken was already beginning to brown. A pair of hot plates and a squad of pots were pressed into action, and by mid-afternoon, the two were sitting down to a feast of roast chicken, gravy, cranberry juice, applesauce, SpaghettiOs, raisins, pumpkin pie, and butterscotch crimpets. Maniac thought of Thanksgiving past, of sitting around a joyless table, his aunt and uncle as silent, as lifeless as the mammoth bird they gnawed on. He said this grace: "Dear God, we want to take this opportunity to thank you for the best Thanksgiving dinner we ever had. Well, I ever had. I guess I shouldn't speak for my friend Grayson." He peeked across the table. "Grayson," he whispered, "is this your best Thanksgiving too?" The old man opened one eye. He shrugged. "Don't know. Ain't tasted it yet." Maniac glared, rolled his eyes upward, and hissed, "Grayson!" The old man flinched. Yeah." He squinted one eye at the chicken. "Yeah, I guess it is." "The best," Maniac prompted. "The best," Grayson said. Maniac went on. "And we want to thank you for this warm house and for our own little family here and for Grayson learning to read. He's already read 13 books, as I'm sure you already know. And one more thing, if you could find some way to let the Beale family know I'm wishing them a happy Thanksgiving, I'd really appreciate it. They're the ones on 728 Sycamore Street, in case there's another Beals around." "Amen." "Amen," said Grayson. They stuffed themselves silly, then collapsed and listened to polka music. My family listens to polka. Not this family, my mom and dad's family. Grayson had brought over a record player a week before, along with his entire music collection, a 31 polka record collection. Grayson loved polkas. They are kind of fun to dance to. Of course, one cannot listen to polka music for long before getting up and dancing, which is what the two Thanksgivers did as soon as their bloated stomachs allowed. They danced and they laughed, record after record. Whether it was the polka that they danced, it was another question. They were probably not dancing the real polka. It was nearly dark. Neither do I, actually. It was nearly dark, both of them having recollapsed, when Maniac said, "Is there any paint around?" "Guess so," said Grayson. "What for?" You'll see. Can you get some? And a brush? The old man dragged himself up. What color? How about black? 5 minutes later, the old man was back. Got brown? That do? Fine, said Maniac. He opened the can, stirred the paint, put a jacket on, grabbed the brush, and went outside. Grayson followed. He watched the kid paint on the outside of the door in careful strokes. 101. Maniac stepped back, admiring his work. 101, he proclaimed. 101 Bandshell Boulevard. Remember how excited he was to have an address when he lived at the Beals? Now he has an address again. If Thanksgiving was wonderful, Christmas was paradise. By now, Grayson had officially moved out of the Y and into 101 Bandshell Boulevard. Thanks to his long acquaintanceship with the locker room attendant, he and Maniac were privileged to continue using the Y's shower facilities at their pleasure. For decoration outside, they nailed a wreath to the door. There was only one small window, but it had no sill to hold a candle, so some spray snow had to do. Inside was another story. Santa's elves themselves would have felt at home. Strings of popcorn swooped across the ceiling. Evergreen branches flared at random, dispersing their piney aroma. You love smelling the Christmas tree smell? Although now I'm ready for spring smell. Wherever there were a few vacant square inches, something Christmassy appeared. A matchbox creche, a porcelain Santa, a partridge, and a pear tree. Do you know what a creche is? A creche is the nativity scene. So when you put out your nativity scene, they call that the creche. One day, Grayson dragged a pair of tree limbs in and started sawing away. When he was finished, a wooden reindeer stood in the room, big enough for Maniac to ride. Are you kidding? Out of, what do you bring in? Tree limbs. Impressive. Of course, the tree got the most attention of all. By the time the two of them finished trimming it, their tree trimming instincts having languished for so many Christmases, hardly a pine needle could be seen under the tinsel and balls and whatnot. So let's read that sentence again. By the time the two of them finished trimming it, that means decorating the tree, trim the tree, their tree trimming instincts having languished for so many Christmases. That means that they were like put away. They didn't have to use their tree trimming instincts because they never had a tree. Maniac didn't even have a house to stay in, so he didn't have a tree to decorate. So the two of them hadn't decorated a tree for so long. But they did good. Well, they did well. Hardly a pine needle could be seen under the tinsel and balls and whatnot. In fact, though they were delighted with their effort, the urge to trim was still full upon them. One room was simply too small to hold the spirit bursting, so they went outside and crossed the creek and tramped the woods until they came to a fine and proper evergreen. And there, their footsteps muffled by the carpet of pine needles, their every breath and whispered word arrayed in frosty white, they trimmed their second tree. So they trimmed a tree in the forest, an evergreen tree in the forest. This time the ornaments were nature's brilliant red and yellow necklaces of bittersweet, pungent pine cones, wine-red clusters of sumac berries, abandoned bird-bodied boats of milkweed, delicate thumb-sized goblets of Queen Anne's lace. Let's see, we're at 14 minutes. Do you think we can read? I think 3 more pages takes us to the next chapter. Okay. It was still dark when Maniac awoke on Christmas morning. With an hour or two, the holiday would come bounding down the stairs and squealing round the tinseled trees of 2 mills. But for the moment, Christmas bided its time outside, a purer presence. So that means in a minute, when everybody wakes up, the place is going to be crazy. But now it was the quiet Christmas. I like the quiet Christmas. I like the crazy Christmas too, but I like the quiet Christmas. Maniac shook Grayson awake, but stayed the old man's hand when he reached to turn on the light. That means he didn't let Grayson turn on the light. He stayed it. He stopped it. They bundled themselves and ventured into the silent night. Maniac carried a paper bag. Snow had fallen several days before. In much of the town, it had been plowed, shoveled, and slushed away. But in the park, along the creek, the woods, the playing fields, the playground, it still lay undisturbed, save for the tracks of rabbits and squirrels. Beyond the tall trees, stars glittered like snowflakes, reluctant to fall. They visited their tree. They stood silently, just to be near it, letting the magic of it drift over them. In the pine-patched moonlight, the Queen Anne's goblets looked for all the world like filigreed silver. They walked the creek woods all the way to the zoo, meandering wordlessly throughout the snowy enchantment. As if by design, they both stopped at the same spot, above the half-submerged, rooty clump of a fallen tree. Somewhere under there, they knew, was the den of a family of muskrats. The old man laid a pine branch at the doorway. Maniac whispered, "Merry Christmas." They visited the animals at the zoo, at least the outdoor ones, wishing them a happy holiday. The ducks seemed particularly pleased to see them. By the time they came to the buffalo pen, dawn was showing through the trees. Before the old man finished saying, "Want a boost?" Maniac was up and over the fence. If Mother Buffalo was glad to see the fence-hopping human again, she didn't show it. But Baby came trotting on over, and the two of them had a warm reunion. Remember, that's where Maniac used to stay before he met Grayson. That's where he met Grayson. Before leaving, Maniac reached into the paper bag and brought out a present. "For you," he said. "Excuse me." It was a scarf, or rather 3 scarves tied together. He wrapped them around Baby's neck. "Next year, I'll get you stockings for your horns." He grinned, "if you have them by then." A final nuzzle, and he was back over the fence. Then they headed back home as the town awoke. Breakfast was eggnog and hot tea and cookies and carols and colored lights and love. As in all happy Christmas homes, the gifts were under the tree. Maniac gave Grayson a pair of gloves and a woolen cap and a book. The book did not appear to be as sturdy as the others lying around. The cover was blue construction paper, and the spine, instead of being bound, was stapled. What do you think it is? The text was hand-lettered, and the pictures were stick figures. The title was "The Man Who Struck Out Willie Mays." The author's name, which Grayson read aloud with some difficulty, was Jeffrey L. Magee. Maniac, in his turn, opened packages to find a pair of gloves, a box of butterscotch crimpets, and a spanking snow-white, never-used baseball. Aren't the new ones the best? Although, I have to say no. I do like a dirty, old, worn out, not worn out, but worn, used baseball or softball. They are the best, actually. He was overjoyed. He rushed to the old man and hugged him. He didn't bug him, he hugged him. The old man put up with that for a second and then pulled away. "Hold on," he said. He went to one of the baseball equipment bags and reached in, tunneled down to the bottom, and came up with another package. There's another yawn. He came up with another package. Where are we? Oh my goodness, I lost my place. This one was wrapped crudely in newspaper. "Hiding this'n," he said. "Didn't know if you're the kind of kid that sneaks a look." Maniac tore it open and gaped helplessly when he saw what it was. To anyone else, it was a ratty old scrap of leather, barely recognizable as a baseball glove, fit for the garbage can. But Maniac knew at once this was Grayson's, the one he had played with all those years in the minors. It was limp, flat, the pocket long since gone. Slowly, timidly, as though entering a shrine, the boy's fingers crept in, flexed, curled the cracked leather, brought it back to shape, to life. He laid the new ball in the palm, pressed glove and ball He laid the new ball in the palm, pressed glove and ball together, and the glove remembered and gave way and made a pocket for the ball. The boy could not take his eyes off the glove. The old man could not take his eyes off the boy. The record player finished the Christmas polka and clicked off, and for a long time there was silence. 5 days. Oh, I just read the last sentence. 5 days later, the old man was dead. Oh, I'm going to have to leave on that note. Grayson died. Oh, that makes me sad. Oh. So Grayson gave Maniac his glove. Sammy plays with my glove. I played softball in high school, and Sammy needed a glove to start to play. She had little gloves, and then she grew out of them. She needed a big glove, and we weren't going shopping for a while, so this was a few years back, and so I gave her my glove. I was like, here, just use this one. And it was kind of like that. It was kind of old, and it was not as old as Grayson's, but it was used, and so when she put her hand in, it's really soft, and it kind of forms around the softball, and she's used it ever since. And I hope she gets to use it this year for something. But I love that she plays with my softball glove. So I'm sure Grayson loved watching Maniac put his baseball glove on. So we're going to find out what happens to Maniac after this. We'll see. This is quite a cliffhanger. Sorry. But I will catch you next time. I promise it won't be long before I come back with another few chapters. Okay. Bye, my loves. I love you.